Might have two more board members come in, but let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So, the first action item on the agenda is to deal with approval of budget transfers, and who is going to explain that to us?
Well, since we just had a audit and finance committee that I chaired, I guess that's kind of up to me.
Okay.
And I have the transfers. Yep, there it is. So the biggest item on here is we're taking the truancy officer back in-house instead of having a contract with EastCon. So that's the $75,000 transfer from the budget line that would have hired somebody at EastCon to accounting line that are. Actually, I believe that we're actually going to spend less than $75,000.
Oh,
Is that
definitely,
right,
yeah.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we're just transferring the money that was budgeted, but we'll end up spending less than that.
Yeah.
And the other one that's bigger than $1,000 is some funding to cover college board testing for our high school students.
Well, then there's one that's,
Let's see.
there are four that are over 1,000. Travel,
okay.
Yeah.
The dues, the NEASC accreditation, that's once again moving money around from one dues budget to another kind of dues budget. And I guess there was money in the travel budget to pay for the,
Yes, originally we had contemplated going and doing recruiting overseas.
now is this fingerprinting for staff or volunteers?
Volunteers.
Volunteers, yeah, that's a relatively recent legislative requirement
Yes.
Yes.
that
Yeah.
that volunteers have to be fingerprinted. And Massachusetts does the same thing, so.
So does anybody have any questions about the transfers that are before us?
Does
Tracy?
that mean that parents won't be passed on the fees for fingerprinting? We had passed the policy 6 months ago, maybe it was, maybe last spring or early fall. I don't remember, I'm sorry, it wasn't over the summer, but we had told Dr. Garcia to see if she could allocate some money for fingerprinting for volunteers, and then on Facebook it blew up that some parents didn't have the $60 to $80 or whatever it was that was being requested of them to volunteer in the classroom, and that was going to make them unable to do so. Is that what this is for?
So we
or is this
allocated
something
money.
different?
So we allocated money for fingerprinting. We can't, pay for all parents, but
Right.
we gave the money to the schools, a certain amount to each school, and they will determine based on their need and based on the parents, because some parents, the fingerprinting is only for parents that want to be overnight or want to be with the students alone.
Right.
Some parents are not going to be alone. So that is, the decision is based at the school level. We just allocated the money here.
Okay, thank you.
So are we saving data on how many parents we're talking about that need to be fingerprinting? In other words, when we're going forward on budgeting, we should have some idea of what this is actually costing, because in this community, if we can pick that up, we should.
Okay, so that's data that we can get very easily, quickly, because the form goes back to HR, so we could just ask HR to get that information. I don't have the number in front of me, but that easily could be collected from
So-
HR.
So if it's not an unreasonable amount of money, we can consider whether we can find room in the budget for it.
Yeah, we had said that we will provide the schools with some amount to do the fingerprinting.
And the question
Each
is,
school.
how big is the amount? That's-
Any other questions?
Do we actually have a motion on the floor?
No.
I make a motion to
If someone would like to move that we adopt the transfers?
I make a motion to approve the budget.
Uh,
Transfers.
The motion's been made by Tracy Lambert, seconded by John French. Any further questions or discussion? Seems pretty straightforward. All those in favor of approving the motion that's on the floor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passed.
Okay, we're good.
Who's taking minutes tonight? Oh, Margaret. Okay, great. I didn't see Janet there, and I just wanted to make sure they were being taken. Okay, so next, we're going to go on to the workshop topic for tonight, which is centered around the Board of Education budget for 2018, 2019. And the date of the referendum this year is...
Well, we don't have an exact date of the referendum. Before I start, I would like to invite Mr. Chris Johnson. Chris, do you want to come up to this table here? And I would like to share, before we talk about the date of the referendum, the calendar with board members again, the calendar so you can have some information. We have the date of the referendum on the calendar, that it will be May, the second Tuesday in May.
It should be on May 8th.
May 8th, the second.
Unless they decide to move it back because of the state budget, which we now have the option to do.
So last year, they moved it back, and so we are not sure what day it's going to be. So as soon as we enter in conversation with the Board of Finance, we'll have a more definite date about when the referendum will be. For now, we want you to keep your abreast with the calendar, the budget calendar, and I believe we want to make sure that it's on the web. Thank you, Ms.
It went up today.
You went up today? It's on the web, so people can be informed of what is taking place. And we'll try to continue to send it to you on Friday in the Friday packet. So we don't have a date of the referendum, but we know it will be sometime in May. Sometime in May.
Yeah, in the past, it was primarily anticipation of a state budget.
Yeah.
Right.
But this-
The town charter states when it is, unless they vote to change
But
it.
the state does a biennial budgets, right? So they passed a 2-year budget, finally. They make some adjustments to it over this year, but we usually don't have the delays in the second year of a biennial budget.
Well, it's a short session,
Short
which
session.
ends on May 9th.
Yeah.
So chances are,
Yeah.
unless something really screws up, that we'll know. But, you know.
The short session this time.
We now.
The things can happen.
We do have option to change it, but at this point, I think people should plan that it'll be the second week of, second
Tuesday.
Tuesday of May.
That I think is May 8th?
Yes.
May 8th, okay. Feedback from the community forum. We had our first community forum regarding the budget here at the high school a week and a half ago. The numbers was not well attended. We expect to have a larger outcome at our second budget forum. However, the majority of the concern came regarding NACHAC parents. NACHAC parents wanted to make sure that we have, the question center about resources for NACHAC, materials for NACHAC, teachers for NACHAC, and there were questions regarding the dual language program in the district. Center about that. What else is this going to still stay on our calendar and agenda? When will we have a compañeros dual language, et cetera, et cetera. So those, nothing extreme, just want to make sure that we continue to provide the services in the school. Parents wanted to know if there were an increase in the budget from the state this year. And, you know, not knowing where the state stand, I think the best approach that we're hearing from our organization is plan for what you had last year. Don't plan for an increase. And so we are using that approach as we plan our budget for this year, is let's plan for what we receive in 17, 18. Don't plan for an increase.
Do you have a question?
I thought the 2-year budget does include second-year funding, doesn't it?
It does include a second-year funding, and it does include an increase for Windham and some other alliance district. It does, you have your top 10 losers and you top 10 winners in this, but it's still legislation. We don't know what's going to happen. We're hearing that although it's there, it might not take place. So,
Right, it's not a balanced budget.
yeah.
So they can still go in and fool around with it.
I believe there's still, 249, 42 millions? Exactly.
Deficit?
The
Yeah.
deficit, right. So although Windham is one of the top winners in the budget. We don't know if that will go because they're taking away money from other school districts, and it's very interesting. Well, I don't want to say from the school district, but they're losers and winner with the new formula for the new budget.
If I understand it, the winners don't win that much, is that correct? Even if we get what they said, it's still not, it's not a vast amount of,
The winners total $269 million.
yes, but how much of that would be us? Because we're one of the small winners.
Yeah, we're one of the small winners, but the total winners, total amount of winners, we total it today, is 269 million. But the losers is not 269 million, so it does not balance.
No, it's not symmetric, yeah.
So that's the information. And so that's the only information before we start. And so we started working our budget. We already finished all the interviews with the principals and with the staffing. We have a budget workshop the 31st, that will be with the community, but we want to share with the board preliminary what we're thinking, where we're headed, to get some feedback from you of what is important to you and where you want us to in what direction you want us to go. So let me start by sharing this with you. Sorry that you have to get up all the time.
Thank you.
Chris, do you have one of these?
I do, yeah, Johnny gave me a copy.
Okay. You guys would like to have one of these?
Should we get one to the paper?
You're welcome. I need more. This is mine. You want to
So this is very preliminary, and definitely, this is your board meeting, so we just want to present this to you in order to get some feedback with you as we continue to work. This is a daily project for Chris and I. Every day we meet, looking at numbers, looking at initiative of where we're going.
So it's a work in progress.
It's a work in progress, so we're not there yet. Every day we're making changes and we're asking questions. But the first page does have the process that we use, and this is very important, thus for you to see where we stand right now. So the budget was released last year. Here we have base budget due to central office. We did that superintendent workshop. We had the first superintendent workshop, and then we'll have another superintendent workshop in February. So we follow the timeline that we have here, so you can see the process that we are using here. I always bring back the goals to you, the goals of the strategic plan, and this is very important because the budget is the tool that we use to achieve the goals of the school district. The budget is the tool to achieve this goal of the school district. So our initiative should be aligned to our goals. Whatever we do should be aligned to our goal, whatever expenditures we have. And so I bring this to your attention and bring it here just in case there's something, any question that you have about any initiative, any cost, and how that is aligned. I also want you to take a look at our enrollment that is increasing. Take a look from 2012 to 2017. And Neil, is this as of October 1st, this enrollment that you gave me here? Does this increase include the current students that we have?
It's likely October 1st.
This is October 1st, so this does not include the 95 new students that we have.
It says based on October 1st
Yeah,
enrollment.
so October 1st, right.
So, two questions.
Sure.
First is, there's this footnote about racial survey by district. Exactly what is that?
Neil?
Since that only applies to the last 2 years, and the last 2 years are bigger numbers than all of the preceding years.
Yeah, I'll have to look into that. I'm not sure where the asterisk is from. I know that's our state number, the 3323. I'm not sure what the asterisk is.
So all those numbers, the preceding numbers weren't supplied by the state?
All those numbers should come off Ed site, and we should have access to those to verify.
Yeah,
those
okay.
are correct.
So there's that footnote there, so I'm just curious about it, but,
You're right, because these are October 1st numbers, so they shouldn't be there.
Right.
That asterisk shouldn't be there.
the other question is, since we're growing, where are we growing? Is this growth of younger students, older students, distributed across all students?
We got that chart from you on previous meetings about where the students are coming in.
Yeah, and I can send you another one on Friday. Every Friday I send out in the packet, I send that chart for you to see. We're growing at all levels, particularly at the elementary level. Some schools have more than others. I don't have the exact number, and I didn't bring that chart with me.
I'm not worried about whether it's, one elementary school or another so much as,
The grades.
are we getting a bulge in the younger students or a bulge in the older students?
We're getting more number at the elementary level.
So it's more of the younger students?
At the younger students,
Okay.
right.
But as I recall, the cost per student of educating elementary is not as high as the cost per student at high school? Is that?
Well, that's based on our accounting. According to the state, the per pupil expenditure is 16.9, so the state has a per pupil expenditure. How we allocate it here is different.
Okay.
But the state per pupil expenditure, what they give us, does not based on elementary, middle, high school, they give us a per pupil expenditure. But we allocate it differently here because of the different programs that we have in schools, for
Well,
example.
where I'm going with this is if our student population grows, that puts upward pressure on the budget.
Sure, yes,
But-
yes.
But is it proportional or disproportional to the growth of students? If we're growing more expensive students, then it puts more pressure on the budget than if we're growing less expensive students. Given that,
Definitely.
they're not all the same,
Right.
So
Yeah,
based.
there's about $1,000 difference between the per pupil at the elementary school level, and then again, 1,000 between the
Yeah.
middle school and the grammar school, elementary school, and then the high school.
So that's why, so most of the growth is at the elementary level, which is not as expensive, it would be as if it were at the high school level.
However,
But still, there's upward pressure on the budget, there's more students.
So because your question referred to services, what are the services that the students
yeah.
need? And if they're coming and they're growing at the elementary level and the numbers are higher at the elementary level, and there are students that have higher needs, then yes, that budget will increase, particularly in the area of ELL and in the area of special ed. The numbers will increase.
Okay.
And so the next, with that said, the next chart deal with special ed expenditure, and you can see the increase in special ed expenditure over the years. And that is due to number of students coming into the system with more needs, and that's what increases there. Although the district has put program in place, and the district have revised placement, the district has done, since Mr. Pavon has been here, has done a pretty good job of making sure that we're aligning the program elementary through 12. Still, the students are coming in with us with tremendous need, and when they come to us, as Mr. Pavon said, when they bring that IP, we have to go with what that IP said. We may do a reevaluation later on, but we have to provide the services based on IP. Am I correct, Miguel?
Correct.
Okay.
That's a 17% growth in 3 years.
Yes. We are aware of
and
that.
that's-
We always saying that. Very high.
So even averaging out, that's like about over 5% a year increase in that, and that's mostly from students arriving from the district from elsewhere?
Yes.
It really depends.
Yeah, but I think the majority are coming from other surrounding school district. And keep in mind, Miguel, I don't want to stop you, I want to continue. We do have a large homeless population, and the majority of kids that we have in the homeless population also qualify for special education. We do have a large homeless population.
Yeah, that's-
Miguel, you can answer that.
That's not terribly surprising, I
We
don't think.
also implemented the Camino Alto program over that time frame, which is supposed to take students back in from outplacements back into the middle school and high school in 4 classrooms. I think we started off with 2 classrooms, now we're at 4 classrooms. So that program is just under $1 million. I think we contracted, it's like $960,000 for 4 classrooms.
Yeah, I understand that what we're doing is an effort to become more efficient in special ed expenditures without losing effectiveness of special ed services. Nevertheless, we're up over $2 million in 3 years.
Well, part of it is contractual increases. You're going to
Yes.
have.
No, he's talking about special ed. He's talking about.
This is special, I'm talking, most of it is personnel expenses.
No, we're talking about special ed. So let me see if Miguel can answer that part, because I know,
Yeah.
yeah.
Part of it is the students who are coming in with, like Dr. Hirsch said, services already in place, so we have to abide by those. Part of it is also the increase in student numbers as well as the percentage. We have a very high percentage special ed students in the district, something I've been very concerned of since I came in regards to just the prevalence rate compared to the state. But as you all know, the special ed expenditures, the special expenditures are always something that we have to kind of pay attention to, and it's hard to kind of plan for because it really will just throw you off.
You can
So
have
we've-
one or two students come in
Correct.
the middle of a year and it throws
Correct.
off the whole budget.
The fact that you
Yeah.
actually see almost like an even growth is unusual. Sometimes you see growth, dips and valleys in there as well. But, it is a moving target. It is very difficult to plan for. But what we do is, we still have to plan for it. We plan for the best that we can provide in district, so we don't always have to go out of district.
So to what extent is state reimbursement keeping up with this?
So the state, are you talking about excess costs?
Excess costs.
So there's a percentage, and probably Chris can talk to you better about that, but there's a percentage. So once we receive, and most of those are going to be the students who are outplaced, who reach a certain number. Once they reach that number, we can apply for excess costs. So we are only paying up to a certain cap, and then we get not 100% back. We get a percentage. What's the percentage, Chris? Do you know off the top of your head?
Depending on whether it's our placement
Or their placement,
Their
right.
placement,
Their placement.
DCF placement, or
Right.
it's Windham placement, we get up to between $950,000 to $1 million in credits from the
Yeah.
state of Connecticut over the course of the year to offset our
Yeah,
But I think what he's asking is how much of the cost, how much does that cover of the actual cost?
well, it's the growth,
each year it changes as to
Yeah.
whether it's our placement.
Yeah, but it's not dollar for dollar.
No,
Yeah,
no,
right.
no, no.
Yeah.
So if our costs have gone up $2 million, there's been some increase in state support, less than $2 million worth of increase, I assume. So what I'm looking at is how much of this is driving increases in the local budget. Because as you know, we have concerns about every dollar of our local budget. And so if we're getting large increases in special ed that we're required by statute to pay, that nevertheless impinges on other things that we're able to do locally.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Just, also, of that number of the 14 million, 1.4 is IDAB. So this is both IDAB plus local funding together. The state wants to have both pieces together, so this is both pieces together. So if you take off 1.4 million from the 14 million, you get to the amount that's in our general fund.
Refresh my memory, what's IDAB?
It is the grant that supports special education. It's federal.
Federal.
It's federal law, the
Federal
IDEA.
Yeah.
But it's also the part of the law, the Individuals Disabilities
Yes.
Education Act, IDEA. So there's funding that comes through that.
What I'm trying to get a handle on is
It's
how,
not maintenance of effort, so you have to show at least the same, if not slightly more expended than in the previous year. And they test that every year. We have to go through, when we apply for the grant, they test whether we have this maintenance of effort, which is at that level or slightly more, depending on the student enrollment in the programs.
what I'm looking for is when we go to the Board of Finance in March, how much more money are we going to need this year compared to last year because of anticipated increases in special ed?
So we're getting there. I was trying to find the exact number.
I
to
mean,
spend.
that's folded into all of the other things that we'll need more money. I know we've paid teachers more, we've paid other staff more. There's a lot of things that drive the budget request. But this is a big chunk of what drives the increase in the budget.
Okay, I think we get your point, so what we're going to need to do is try to get an answer to that question before we have to go do the presentation to the Board of Finance. That would be helpful, okay?
Sure.
Okay. so
There's a typo on this page, but that's okay.
Which one is that?
We didn't spell education correctly.
Oh, you're right.
Probably do that.
What happened to the spell checker?
Okay, so we're on to the next page,
Yeah,
where we
we-
talk about the different breakdown of
The contractual
stuff. Yeah.
obligation. So we shall give you the information regarding, these contracts already have been settled. So we have those contracts, so this is, we're only waiting on one. No, we said all of them, these are non-affiliated. But here are the information of how those increases would look from each one of those contracts that have been settled.
Anybody have any questions about that? Okay.
So the next two pages are description of our health benefits, medical plans, and I am not going to go over those. That's for your pleasure when you have some time to read it, but it talks about the copay, and as you know, I guess in September we'll all be going to the high deductible plan, but so I'll leave that up for your pleasure, for your reading. And the two last pages deals with a projection of our salaries increasing. We always look at salary and benefits first because it's what cover about 80% of the budget. That's the highest expenditure in the budget. This should align to what you see, the page that have all the different contracts.
Does
Go ahead,
the,
Jaime's asking a question first.
On this page, when we have this, it says,
Yes.
hold on, I just saw this. Teachers 2.56% increase.
And then
And
he put
then-
an average of 3%.
3%, that's a big difference. That's
Well, it's-
0.5%.
The .05, it's because we have a slight increase in the number of teachers. There's a couple of teachers that were increased at different elementary schools. That's driving it up past the 2.5. So you've got a volume and a rate increase. A rate of 2.56 and a volume increase, which I'm saying is about 3%.
Total cost
Because-
of teachers.
Yeah, if you
Including
look
new
at,
hires
the contractual increases plus where we're adding teachers, I'm saying it's about 3%. That's what I'm basing the projection on, because at a couple of the elementary schools, we're adding teachers, so.
So so if I understand this correctly, you're not saying that's a salary increase, that's just addition of positions?
No.
There's
Okay.
additional positions and there's contractual increase. The
Okay.
two together are estimated at 3%.
Okay.
So what he's saying, 3% of the increase over last year in teacher salaries and benefits.
2.56 is driven by the contracts and the other.
What is the total amount of teachers?
What-
So how much would that be, 0.44%?
We have 340 teachers.
It'd be
No,
at
the total
$95,000, Dr. 95,000.
It would be about $95,000?
$95,000,
Okay,
yes.
that's what my question, thank you.
Okay. Murphy, did you have a question?
I was just curious as to whether the administrators includes the central office or just the union.
No, the central office is unaffiliated, so they're not in that 2%.
So that's a separate category.
Right.
Okay.
That's certified administrative.
These are
Well, this is,
certified
the administrators
2%
that we have that are
yes.
contracted with. That's the principals, assistant principals.
They are at 2%.
Yep,
But
okay.
do keep in mind that this is the first year of their contract, that 2% does increase over the other 2 years. The first year, they had a 2%, but the year 2 and 3, that will increase. All the other salary increases average 2.5%. Those are all the non-affiliated that we have. One of the things that we point out there is the reduction in magnet grants. We started at 300,000, but we think it may be about 200,000, Chris. I think today, I think that.
It might be better than this,
Yeah, I
because
think
the
it's
state just sent us an email
Yeah.
saying that they're cutting the magnet school grant by only 7.5% versus the 10% I thought. We thought
Initially.
the original, they said, expect 10%.
Okay.
So we think it would be
It's about
come down to 200,000.
$100,000.
$100,000.
$100,000 less of a cut.
So there was some discussion last year about the possibility of increasing the tuition at the magnet school. If the state is cutting their support, do we need to think about increasing the magnet school's tuition to offset that?
So this is my year 4, and since I've been here, we already increased it by $100. I mean, so I don't want to increase it every year. But already we increased it by $100 about 2 years ago. So maybe this could be the next year to increase it, it would be year 3, but we already did an increase of $100.
Well, $100
For
out of...
students.
Per student, yeah, but what's that as a percent? How much are we charging per student?
We received from the state
4,500.
45, we charge 45, the
We
state
charge
gives.
45, so $100, 2 years ago was, so now we're charging 4,600.
Okay, so-
Unless we decide to increase next year.
So that's, all right, so we're talking about, this is the tuition for the 150 or so out-of-district students.
180 students if there's 20 students per grade level, times 9 grade levels, that's 180 students, times $100 per student, that's $18,000. $18,000.
That's a
18,000.
2% increase. the $100.
$18,000 is the increase that it was whenever you raised it $100.
Yeah, 2 years ago.
So
right
that's
there.
not nearly enough to keep up with the cuts that we're seeing.
Correct.
Not
Yeah,
even
so-
close. Even
and-
another $100 wouldn't touch
And,
it, so.
and the next question is, who actually pays the $4,600?
Remember, we do get tuition from the state. We tuition part of it, and the other portion come from
Yeah,
the
well,
state.
that's
We have
what the,
24 districts we charge tuition.
Tuition.
so the districts pay the tuition for their
Yes.
students that come here,
We
right?
tuition, this $100 comes from the district.
So if we raise the tuition, it's not raising the fee that the parents have to pay.
Right.
It's raising what the sending districts have to pay.
Yeah, what the sending district has to pay.
Okay.
Right.
And the state is reducing the tuition that the state is paying.
At the magnet school, correct.
All right.
So this will have
So
to come
either we eat the $300,000 or we try and get all or most of the $300,000 from the 24 sending districts.
Yeah, and this will have to come out of their budget. This will have to come out of,
Yeah,
this will have to
well-
come out of their budget.
So why, $100 just doesn't seem like a big enough increase. And also, it seems that that we're getting further behind where we ought to be, and rather than hitting the districts with a large increase all at once, we ought to be increasing annually so that we catch up to where we ought to get to without handing them one really large bill. As I recall, when we were sending students to Norwich Free Academy, NFA basically said, we're going to increase it 4% every year.
Yeah, and they did.
And they did and they do. If you're sending students to...
And they're losing student left and right.
Yeah.
And they're losing student left and right.
Yes, but
Not
that's
only from us.
because the parents are paying, and in the case of NFA, the district, we were the ones that had the contract with NFA. This wasn't a question of parents in the 24 sending districts get to choose to decide to enter the lottery and send their kids to Barrows, right?
Yeah, the parents don't pay this tuition.
Right.
That's
This will go
right.
straight to the district.
So the parents can choose to enter the lottery regardless of what it's costing their district.
Sometimes they don't even know what it costs.
Yeah, fine.
And
So we don't have to be too chintzy about the size of the pay raise. We're not hitting some poor parent.
Tracy?
I don't disagree with what Dr. Sewell's saying, but I took the $300,000 and divided it by 180, and we would need to charge $1,667 more per student, and I don't think that's going to happen right away, because all the districts, I think there's two parts to this, if I may. There's two parts to this. One, that we should, if we're going to increase it, and I think that we should, because we shouldn't be held to a deficit in this building, in Barrows is what I mean by this building. However, we should notify these districts as soon as possible, because every district in the state is doing this process right now. And if they have 20 or 30 students coming here, divided by the 9 grade levels, that could impact their budget a little bit. And that's something they need to be made aware of as soon as possible, or we'd have to defer it to the following year. So those are some things. But I do think that increases over a number of years, we're going to increase it 2% or something like that over the years until we catch up with the state spending, or until we, feel like we don't need to increase it for a while. It doesn't have to be for perpetuity, as nice as that would be. We don't need to rob them. But I think that that's not something that's inappropriate at this point.
So, 2 comments. The law does require that we notify the school district by May 1st, that we increase in the tuition. That's the law of the state of Connecticut. The last time we increased it, we did notify them very early before, because you're right, they're doing budget, and the school district wants to know.
Right.
Remember, I meet with these superintendents at URSA, so I have to, they're my neighbors and they're my colleagues, so, and they're going through the same budget situation that we're going to, not an excuse, but they're going through the same
Right.
situation. And those districts all are smaller districts than us. And I think if the board would like to increase it on a regular basis, like some other places do, like NFA or others, then we'll have to look at a policy or something like that, a regulation. I could bring that to the board and at another discussion time, where you guys will say, we increase it every 2 years by 2%, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, I think what we're hearing in this discussion is that there seems to be some sentiment about us considering a proposal that we would, when we're putting together the budget and before we bring it to the Board of Finance, to have a proposal about having a plan for raising tuition on a graduated basis over a couple of years, right? Is that what I'm hearing from you all?
If I may add to that.
And that I think, I hear from you, Dr. Garcia, that we need to balance all these things, but I don't think we can go and ask for increases from the taxpayers in our town when we're not protecting their interests. And so I think we need to be cognizant of that, yes.
Well, we took $20,000 out of our operating budget to pay for the lottery at Barrows. And now we have 20 students per grade level, a third of each grade level coming from outside districts. We're not going to give them less of an education than they are from Windham. So the Windham taxpayers should not have to pick up the difference between what the state's allocating us and what the towns are paying us. That hardship shouldn't fall on the Windham taxpayer, the Wyndham Willimantic taxpayer.
Yeah, I
feel.
agree,
feel
totally
like
agree.
there has to be some kind of meeting in the middle. Obviously, increasing it $1,700 in 1 year is a ridiculous
happen,
thought, but we have to start moving towards that equal balance.
$400? I mean,
Yeah.
let's,
Yeah.
yes, I mean,
I may add, I think we should charge that every year and not every 2 years. That would be my recommendation, that we do it on a yearly basis.
So we can bring a proposal back to you. We can do some projection and bring it back to you. And I know there are some schools that increases every year. There are some, like the Learn Magnet School, they do every 2 years. They increase there. So we know, for example, because we have kids that go, remember, we pay tuition to a lot of different schools.
Right.
E.O. Smith, we have Learn, we have a lot of other schools.
QVCC.
QVCC,
So-
the middle college.
Act.
So if there are these other schools that are charging tuition that we pay, how much are we paying? Can we get some numbers for what
We do have
other
that.
schools are
We do have
charging
that.
for tuition?
We do have that.
Some
We can-
data points on that.
Yeah, we do have that because we're using that when we're looking at the budget. So we do have ACT and some others, yeah.
I think we have 2 new members here, too. It'd be good for them to see what the tuition is per student, how many students we're sending there. I mean, Lynn and Ilda don't
And
have a
what's
lot of
the
experience
increase?
and stuff like that. How much increase it's gone over the past 5 years or something like that.
right.
Whether it's yearly or whether it's per contract or,
We could get you that.
Yeah, it's in the EDO one,
Yeah.
the detail, so I can
Right.
get that.
Like
That
how
would be
much-
very helpful.
Like how much we pay
Thank
E.O.
you.
Smith. A lot of our money go to E.O. Smith.
Yeah.
Per school, number of students and tuition, times the number of tuition
Yeah.
equals,
Yeah, but Mrs. Lambert's right.
Tech.
We should look at the tuition, the increases that, or if there've been increases and how much.
What the averages have
Okay.
been.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think that is definitely on the list of something that we need to consider before we put together the final budget.
And we have time
Yeah.
to do this because, like I said, okay, so we came up with 1.1 projected salary, and that included 300,000, right, Chris? In that
Right,
one bill.
that includes the shift over from the
The magnet
magnet school,
school.
which may be less.
Less than
So it
that,
may be 1
yeah. yeah.
rather than 1.1.
Today, they said it would be, things on the
Yes, it
state
may be
change.
one. It's 100,000, it
Yeah.
looked like it was $100,000 less when I did the math.
Keep in mind that things in the state change on a different, every day, you get a different
Yep.
answer. But today, they said that this would be lower than, when we started, we thought it would be much more than this. We thought at 500,000 when we started. And so now we went to 3, but today they said it would be lower than that.
It was good news.
Okay,
And then you have the increases in the operating expenditure, so you have maintenance, we're looking at about 40. We're looking at M&J. I think that increase in transportation is too low. I honestly think, and I talked to Chris today, that we need to increase M&J. Yes, Dr.
3% of what? Because we budgeted for transportation, and that's mostly in J, right?
Yeah.
Over $2 million for the year.
We got 2
So
million and 100.
3% of that is 600,000, so
But I think
Not 70,000.
I think what you were putting there, you're putting a bus there for seven, I don't know
Well,
why.
it's 3% is the bus
Bus.
increase. So in other words.
3% more buses?
Over 5 years, it's 3% per
Yeah.
annum on the per bus per day rate.
Yeah,
Oh, okay, so that's 70,000 per bus per day.
per bus,
Yeah.
right. I think this
All right.
one we going to, so,
And that's regular that's 31 buses
Bus.
for regular,
Yeah.
and then they have, I
I'm sorry,
think,
it's,
that's M&J, and then they have 5.
Eastcon?
5 vans or medium-sized
Medium.
buses, I think Tier 2 or Type 2 buses, that they handle the in-town special ed, and
Yeah, I
maybe
guess it is
also the
$70,000.
pre-K
All right.
programs.
Yep.
And then the out-of-town transportation is Eastcon, Curtin, and another company. But that's the more variable one, is the out-of-district
All right.
special ed.
I did
where we
my math wrong
contract
anyway.
with companies for individual students based on their IEPs, right? Correct.
however,
And those are about $40,000 a pop. a
however,
van.
M&J needs to increase, because we deal on a daily basis with the buses situation, and so I know what M&J does and where students go, and how many kids we have on the buses, and with the increase of students, I think we will ask M&J next year, in order to put one bus, I think we need 2 buses, so
Okay.
that's one area that I think needs to increase.
That's-
I mean, we deal with them on a daily basis, I know where they're sending the buses, how many kids we have on the buses.
well, the other question is the one that I raised last year, is that every year, we end up with a deficit in the transportation budget that we close by transferring money from somewhere else.
Yeah, yeah.
And this year, we are, once again,
Yeah.
in arrears in terms of the actual expenditures compared to the budgeted amount. And so, once again, we're going to have to transfer money from somewhere else to the transportation budget to cover it.
That's correct.
Maybe we ought to try and budget transportation for what it's really going to cost us, which is about $500,000 more than we budgeted for, correct?
Yeah, the $500,000, you could probably break it up into 2 pieces. There's the piece that I just talked about, which is the special ed out-of-district, which is a wild card. It's kind of a variable. It depends on how many kids we send
Yeah.
out-of-district with these IEPs, and that's $40,000 a van, so it doesn't take a lot of students to get to that level. The question is, on average, how many students do you get? The other piece of it is the Head Start program has a certain amount of busing associated with it, but the grant can't always absorb all of the busing related to Head Start Basic and Early. So that ends up then being picked up by the general fund. So between those 2 pieces, that's most of the $500,000. So yes, we could increase the transportation line by that amount and get closer to our actual spending. We could also take the excess cost money we get from the state and break out that piece that is transportation and apply it to transportation accounts.
So we
Because I
know.
think we're just pushing it all against tuition.
So we know that Head Start transportation about $180,000. We know that. Every year, we know how much that costs us. It's about $180,000.
I try to put it into
transportation.
the grant, but it doesn't
It
always
doesn't
get absorbed by
cover,
the
it doesn't
grant.
cover. So, when the board made the decision to provide transportation to the kids, we went ahead and we did it, but that's
The policy changed
$180,000.
4 years ago that
Yeah.
for transportation
Transportation.
for the early Head Start program, I think initially, within a certain radius, you weren't supposed to transport. You were supposed to walk, I thought. But then, based on a policy change, we bused everybody, even though they were within a certain radius of the schools. So that's expensive, obviously.
Well, parents didn't want to be outside in the snow with a pre-K, so we provide transportation to a pre-K student, but that's $180,000 added to the budget.
So
Well,
the question
let-
is, do we want to keep the policy,
Well-
continue with that, or budget?
I don't have a problem with that. What I've just noticed is that annually, we end up transferring about $500,000 from somewhere into the transportation budget.
And why don't we just be real?
We're real about it, right. So,
So
So-
it would seem that if we're going to keep doing that, that we should recognize reality and put more money in the transportation budget in the first
Yeah.
place.
and I think M&J needs some more buses. Like I said,
Okay.
I deal with them on a daily basis, and you know, with the newcomers that we have and the location that they are, M&J is running from here to here, from here to here, the buses. We have buses that have 60-something kids to capacity. I mean, I've seen it myself, I've gone to some of them myself.
Go ahead.
Yeah, where are the homeless kids? I mean, I think I asked one of the retreat, but do they live somewhere?
Yeah.
I know that it's homeless, but.
You could be considered homeless if you're just doubling up
Right.
at your aunt's house because you don't have your own apartment.
Yeah.
So they may not be living in a shelter, or they may not be
But
living
they
in a
live in
tent.
Windham, I guess
They live
they
in,
have to.
yeah.
Not
No,
all
they
of
don't
them.
have to live
Not
in
all of
Windham.
them. Some of
So
them
why
live-
do we take them?
Bec-
Why don't we take them to Manchester?
they're-
Why does Windham is responsible for them?
Because they're placed by DCF. And once they're placed by DCF.
the DCF,
Yes, they
okay.
could be living in, for example, we have a couple students that live in Danielson, because the shelter's in Danielson, but DCF placed them there, but they're here.
How do they decide that? What's the criteria?
I
for that?
don't work for DCF, I
No,
cannot
but,
tell you, but
you
they're the
probably
one.
know. I would
Well-
ask.
Well, they put them where they can find a shelter.
They may find a
Shelter,
shelter
yeah,
someplace, but they have a connection to this community,
Community, right.
perhaps. Like, they may have been going to school here or have a relative here or something.
Before, yeah.
When kids are older, they give the family a choice of, like, say, if you remove a kid from Danielson, then you ask the family, do you want that kid, even though he's going to be placed in Windham, do you still want him to go to Danielson, or vice versa? And usually the family says yes. I want my kid that's been going to Danielson for 5 years to continue to go
Yeah,
to
stay in the
Danielson.
same school.
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't know what the distance, maybe you can tell me, but we have a family from New London here, please, here, from New London.
Well, there are domestic violence shelters all over the state, too, and for a variety of reasons, families in domestic violence shelters are not usually in the same community that they started out with. Plus, the shelter they end up in usually is the shelter that has space for them. But the student, as you said, may still be going to the same school that they've always gone
Yeah.
to.
Well, and really, we're looking for the students' best health and best, wellness.
Yeah.
And if everything else in their life is being uprooted, but they can keep their friends they've known forever, or whatever, that's definitely the
Yeah.
best place for them.
Right.
So it gives us some obligation in that. And they're probably Wyndham students that were placed in a shelter in Danielson, and that's why we have to drive out there, because it's more of an upheaval in their lives
Yeah.
when they're already going through so much, so.
There has to be a criteria based on which they make the decision.
I'm sure there is.
Particularly the high school
Family,
students,
the family.
particularly the high school students, it's easier at the elementary level, but particularly if you're 11 or 12th grade or ninth grader, yeah,
Well, middle school and high school kids, they want to stay with their friends.
they're friends, right?
That's their support
high
system at
school,
that point, yeah.
And high school kids are adamant about it.
Yeah.
If you put them in another school, they will even leave. Because they want to be with their friends, because that's all they have, is their friends. They don't have their family.
It's complicated.
Oh, yeah.
That's what
Yeah,
it is,
yeah.
really.
And costly.
And so we also have a 3% increase in tuition for SPED, and maybe Miguel can tell us a little more of that. I was talking to Miguel, actually, the numbers this year in special ed with Mr. Pavon looks much, much better than last year, so I don't expect that we have to make a major transfer. But Miguel, could you tell us, we're looking at, Christian and I, 3% increase in tuition. Do you think that will be sufficient enough, or?
Yeah, I talked to Chris about this, and that's really an average, keyword average. Again, this is a number that sometimes is a moving target. And so based on previous expenditures, we went with that average. In some cases, it'll be lower. It won't be above 3%, we don't believe. We did see this year that where we are currently at this time of the year, based on last year at this time of the year, we are in a much better
position
in terms of the costs that we are, and again, we strive to have programs in district so that we don't have to send kids out of district. That really is a major driving force when we're talking about the expenditure, because then you're also adding transportation, and you're adding, there could be, we don't always have to have one student on the bus, but if there's only one student going to like a school that's in Rhode Island, for example, and that happens, that's one bus that for one student, you know? Versus in district, we can put several students in a small bus and still consider it special transportation. So there's a lot of factors, but those are the reasons that this number is a moving target.
Dr. Garcia?
Yeah?
It says 3% increase in insurance due to higher claims. We're self-insured. Is our bubble still okay?
No, this is insurance for general liability.
General liability.
This is not the health insurance.
It's not health
Okay.
insurance, it's general liability, and
Okay.
it relates to things, and again, we're just guessing because we had.
We haven't gotten actual quotes?
We haven't gotten our new policies yet, number one, and so we always have to kind of project. But there's been a lot of catastrophic events in the country, and I think we'll see some of that come through in our policies, like, the weather problems out in California, mudslides, rain, fire, all that stuff
Right.
eventually impacts everybody's insurance rates. And then we've had some claims at the middle school because of water damage. We had some claims at the Barrows because of water damage. Kramer, the roof leaked, and we had a copier that had to go. At Barrows, we had $75,000 worth of servers go bad because of water issues. And then
there's
we
no
had recently had a
stenographer room.
pipe that went.
The pipe that just got broken at the Barrows?
So,
I mean,
I think this happens in a lot of districts because of weather and also construction and whatever, so.
Did you have thank you, did you have a question about the health insurance, though?
Well, I mean, I'd like
It's
to
not
make sure
listed
that-
on here, but-
Right, that our bubble, so to speak, but I'd like to make sure that our padding there is still sufficient.
Chris, we didn't put the health insurance?
We don't have to do it
Oh,
tonight,
I
but
don't
that
know
could
why
be
that
something for a future one.
That bullet wasn't on here.
My
But in
range
any
is
case, I estimated about 8%.
Yes.
We set the budget last year at 7%, so I increased it slightly to 8%. The Anthem factors are a lot higher, but we haven't been running industry standards.
Okay.
The industry would like to push up as much as they can, obviously.
Of course.
So they're saying 12%, 13% for medical, 16% for RX. It's just not there for us. We've been, especially since we've been migrating toward the HD-HP plan from comprehensive and PPO, that's had an effect on us to stabilize some of the growth in our medical claims. The big thing that we've been seeing is big increases in pharmaceutical RX. That is true. But I've talked to Goodall, Todd Goodall, who's our consultant from Lockton, who handles the Anthem account for us, and he said, 8% was reasonable to go with.
Well, he's pushing 8% now, but a week ago, he was pushing more than 8%.
So is that factored into what you're
Yeah,
doing now
so
with
I'm
the budget?
I'm saying insurances, including medical, are going to go up about 8%, with everything except for medical having a lower growth. You've got stuff like unemployment, you've got stuff like workers' comp, you've got stuff like FICA Medicare, those pieces are running at less than 8%.
Right.
So,
But if you take a look at the plan that we just gave you, the majority of the unions, starting September 1st, would be high deductible, the majority of them. And so that means that the board has to come up with that copay.
That's true, we have to
We-
pay
and so-
either the 1,000 or the 2,000.
To 2,000. Or the
of the deductible.
1,500 for some dependent.
2,000 for single, 4,000 for family.
Yeah.
We pay either, for a single, we pay 1,000, for a family, or a double, we pay 2,000, and that money goes directly into their health
Account.
savings account, or HSA, and then they can also voluntarily contribute if they want to, which a lot of people do, honestly, because they want to cover the 100% of the deductible.
But we
They
have
wanna
to
be
budget,
able-
we have to budget for that, because that's coming out of our fund.
Right.
Yeah, it's
We
coming
have to
out of
budget
our
for it.
health benefits line,
Yeah.
but then we hope to see lower claims because.
We hope. That's the word, Chris. We hope. That's the key word.
I know it doesn't take more than one or two employees with catastrophic health issues
To
to
bring it
really
up.
eat into that
Yeah,
fund
oh,
that we
definitely.
have, and so that's why I was.
Yeah, we have
I
insurance,
immediately
but
went to-
remember, we do have
Right,
insurance
like gap
up to
insurance.
175.
Right, but we don't want to deplete it too much below a certain amount, that's
No,
all.
but we do have that excess
Right.
coverage that we cannot go past. And they do, maybe each year we have between 10 and 20 people that do get into that range of experience.
Thank you.
Looking at staffing, I do have staffing here, I can share with you in a little bit. The staffing request has not been drastic. We seem
Where
like...
is that? Is that something we have?
It's not in there.
Okay.
It's not in there, so we're going to add staffing later on too, but I do have some staffing that I can share with you.
So are we not, anybody have any questions about the last page? 18, 19.
So there's two versions of the budget for now. I mean, based
Hold on,
on
Chris,
these...
don't go there
Okay.
yet, don't go
Yep.
yet. So
Okay.
we want to go staffing. So then we want to go to staffing before we go to that.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay?
No, I just saw the last
Last
page
page,
on our
that's what Chris
packet.
was gonna talk about.
Okay, so I know that, you did want to do this one? Let's do
That's
this
what he
one
was just going to do.
without the staffing?
Yeah.
Okay, let's
just-
do I thought we did the last page. We did the
No,
last
we
page.
didn't.
No, we didn't.
No, we didn't do it last time.
Okay, let's do the last
The
page.
next
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I think it was talking about this, Chris. I thought you were going to talk about this.
Well, yeah, just essentially all those bullet points that we just went through, there's two scenarios in the back. If you take all of those changes, salary changes, operating expenses, medical, and you take what was presented as far as curriculum requests and computer requests, hardware, then our budgeted increase would be 2.8 million, or 5.9%. If we decided to cut or ask the town to
Take out the...
to do the
900.
capital pieces
Out, yeah.
out, so that would be about 900,000, 650,000 of hardware that Brendan requested, based on initiatives like one-to-ones and all these other things, and 250 of curriculum requests, which, if you add those two together, it's 900,000. If we shifted that and asked the town if they had the money to take that,
Out
it
of
would be
what, out of contingency or
Fund.
undesignated?
Undesignated
fund?
designated
Yeah.
fund. If we asked that from the
Yeah.
town, if they would accept that, if they had the money, then it would be 4% the increase.
So what's the current state of the town's uncommitted fund balance?
I'd have to take a look. I know it still gives us a AA rating, but again, there's been talk by the rating agencies, if we continue to dip into our undesignated fund balance, it could have implications into our ratings.
Well-
So how much?
I'm pretty sure in the double digits. I'm pretty sure, right,
Well, so
Mr.
the
Frank?
question is,
Is in the double digits.
Well,
the question is, what's
I
the...
think it's gone below
It
10
may be-
million.
but the-
And we can't look at the taxing district, because the taxing district is the
Right.
police and fire, and
Well, we
they have
just-
their own fund balance, and that really is not ours to.
rather than speculate, why don't you just get us the answer to that? What's the
I will.
For
undesignated
next
fund
week?
balance? Yeah, that'd be great.
I can give you an unaudited number.
Right, an
That's
unaudited
close enough.
number, that would help us, because then we'd know what the percentage is, and, those of us, John and I, who've been on the Board of Finance, know that there are always targets for what we try to keep it at.
What is the going target right now as far as Wall Street and everybody else?
That's fine.
It used to be 6%, then they moved it to 8%, now some people say...
Oh, it's
double
much
digit.
higher.
They
It's
want-
double,
they-
yeah, it's
they'd
like
like to see 15.
15.
Well, that's
What-
because of the state of the state.
Yes,
Right, exactly, because they see a lot of risk in state funding, especially towns that receive a lot of state funding. They want to see a high fund balance, because in case of changes in the state's funding
Yeah,
of
so we need
grants
the
and...
percentage as well as the dollar, so...
right, because when I was chair of the Board of Finance last, they were trying to get us up over 15, and I know that the town had gotten down closer to 10.
It had gotten
Yeah,
down,
so-
and that's combined with the taxing district and the...
Right. So we just need to know the answer to that, because that would help us figure out the political calculation of
Well,
what we're
and
asking.
whether or not it's at all reasonable to approach the Board of
Well, that's
Finance
what
for
I mean.
$900,000.
Yeah.
That's-
That's what I
Yeah, well,
mean.
it sounds like it's not, if it's getting to that point, so...
But at the 5.9, that would be the highest in a few years, right?
Oh, in many years.
That'd be some kind of a
Try
record.
history.
I mean, initially, when we first come to the board, it usually is
Yeah.
pretty high.
Yeah.
And then we
And then
massage
the
the
question
numbers.
is, what do we...
So this is your starting number.
Right.
This is a starting number. We will be sitting down, I still have to sit down with some of my cabinet member, and we're doing some realignment of position, we combining some position, things like that, some position have been eliminated. I'm not going to present that to you tonight, next week I will do so, because I'm still having some conversation, and so before it gets out there, what position will be eliminated, I want to make sure the people know who are involved. But I do want to share with you the staffing request from the school, so you can have an idea of the staffing request from the schools. And it's in much better position this year than last year.
Are they getting one?
No, I don't have
You
enough.
have one?
He has one. You have one.
Dr. Garcia gave
Yeah, they can go.
Yeah, you can share, I share.
Yeah. So we've been very conservative in the
I have
staffing
one.
request.
Thank
You have one?
you. Yes, I do.
We've been very conservative in the staffing request so far. This is what I have for a request. The high school, this is not a new request, but the salary of the resource officer will increase by $20,000 with salary and benefits. At Sweeney, the request of one bilingual teacher, and this is to the increase of newcomers with a second language. At Windham, there is no staffing request for Windham. Windham Center, one bilingual teacher. Natchog, one bilingual teacher. And again, this has to do with the bilingual program increasing from grade to grade. So now we're moving up to second grade. We're kindergarten and first grade, and now we're going to second grade. Windham Middle School at this time doesn't have any staffing requests. However, I'm paying close attention to their enrollment. Currently, they're at 210, but I have 265 fifth graders. And so we sent out a survey and asking those parents to get an idea.
At Windham Middle?
Yeah. We have, in fifth grade across the district, we have 265 fifth graders,
Okay, you said at Windham Middle you have 210
sixth graders.
sixth graders.
Sixth
Okay.
graders. And we have less than 200 eighth graders, so they're coming in. So
Right, okay,
we
I
expect that
understand.
maybe we get 30 to 40 kids new from sixth grade. We don't know that yet. I'm paying attention to that, so that may increase the numbers there. Barrows, no new position. They're in a very good position. But central this should not say central office, central district, not central office. Putting in the budget a district-wide instrumental music teacher. As you know, the music program is growing in our elementary school, instrumental music. I believe we will obtain the grant from Save the Music Foundation. The meeting with the music teacher on the 31st, and I think the music teacher will pass that with flying colors. This is also part of what parents would like to see. So we're putting one music instrumental teacher that will go from school to school at the elementary level. And also, we call it technical intern. I don't know if that's the best title for this position. But now that we're starting with the one-on-one in sixth grade and ninth grade, next year is moving to 6, 7. We do have technical support, but the technical support are techies, meaning that they handle fixing the computer, et cetera. Yeah, so we would like to have somebody that is technology instruction, that can help teachers with really what to do with the Google Classroom, not only how to start it. And so how can we use instructional technology in the classroom? I'm pretty sure Dr. Youngberg will be very, very happy to see this, because now we're integrating technology into the curriculum.
Why
So-
is that called an intern?
Well, we saw this title at another school district, and we stole it from another school district. That's what they call their person that does
So
this
you can
job.
pay them less?
So,
I don't want to say that in public. But we cite another job description from another school district, and
Okay.
we stole it, that's what they call them. So that's basically, now, there will be some decreases, and I did go over those today, but I will wait till the next meeting, because I want to double check those decreases before I give them to you, and I want to talk to some of my staff members before I do that. So I think the decreases and the increases will iron out one another. There will not be any major.
There's already a resource officer that's shared between the middle school and the high school. So why are we adding one to the
No,
high
we're not
school?
adding one. It's the same resource officer, but the benefits and salary are increasing.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay.
So for us, it's $20,000 more.
Okay.
So that's where we are.
Is
and-
this 404,000
reflected.
factored into the other page that you gave us, no.
The 3%?
Remember,
no.
there's offsets she hasn't shown you.
No, they're not in there, but I do have the
It's,
offset, the decreases that will offset these.
She
Okay.
get the good news.
Yeah.
Dr. Garcia, may I ask a question?
Sure.
Back earlier in the presentation, you gave us the increases for everybody. The non-affiliated, did they get increases last year?
Yes, already had increases. yeah.
And do you have a breakout, it doesn't have to be tonight, do you have a breakout of percentages? or
2.5.
2.5 across the board for everyone? Directors, IT, Head
2.5,
Start, everybody
yeah.
got 2.5?
I'm not affiliated,
Every non-affiliated, right, got
Non-affiliated, right.
2.5?
and I will double check that tomorrow to try and get it cheap, but I believe it's 2.5.
If I had seen this earlier, I would have sent you an email asking that question, just to have a general idea of what the increase was last year. Are you intending similar this year? I know some of it's based on performance and stuff like that. Are you intending similar this year?
I did put 2.5 for the non-affiliated.
Okay. Just curious, that's all, just so we have an idea, like
Yeah.
2.5
Yeah.
up, 2.5 down, some got them, some didn't.
So we try to have the non-affiliated close to between the teachers and administrators, not too far away. So here's where we are for tonight, and we'll continue and get you something in more detail the next meeting, because the next one will be a
Wednesday?
Next Wednesday is a workshop that the public will be attending, is a budget workshop.
Oh, there's a budget workshop for the public on the 31st
Yes.
of January.
Friday?
No, it's a Wednesday.
Wednesday, I'm
It's
sorry.
on a Wednesday.
Yeah, Chris, no
Here,
work.
yes.
Chris,
here.
a workshop on Friday?
Is it here?
Yeah, I like that idea.
Yes, Dr. Gomez, it's here.
We can go down to the Harp.
Ms. Testa sent an email last week with a list of when all the meetings were.
I
Yeah.
read it, but I forget things now.
Yeah, it's in
Yeah.
the schedule.
Yeah. Right.
And it's here too,
It's right
here.
here on this list
And it's
that
on
you
this
got
list too.
tonight.
Got tonight, so just a little reminder to remind you.
And then the draft book will be out to people on the 16th, I think it is, right?
Yes.
Yeah, the 16th.
what it says.
Yeah. Don't remind us that date, please, Chris, we. Questions? So we're starting at that, we will definitely come down the next board meeting with another number. Is there, well, I know we asked the question last year, and it's always a controversial question, but I will ask it again. Is there a number, based on your experience, based on your experience, do you have any
A target?
a target or a range of where you like us to see us approach you on the next time? Based on what you think this district, this school, this community can afford?
You don't want to hear that.
I do say that last year, though, last year, the increase was 2.99. Last year.
But
No, 3.6.
Last year? Oh, if you include
What we transferred to.
The capital improvement.
the capital improvement, right. I didn't include the capital improvement at
The shell
2.9.
game.
Yeah. I didn't include the capital
Well, I think
improvement.
the town is also inclined to keep its MDR as low as possible.
Oh, yeah.
So they're
Oh.
receptive to that request. The question
Right.
is, how much can they?
Can afford.
Probably,
Right.
Yeah.
Is the increase in IT that was listed in this first packet, is that all the new Chromebooks, or is there something else that's in
No,
there?
I'm pretty sure it would include some other things. I don't know the breakout exactly, how much would be Chromebook and how much would be software. Brandon, do you know?
Yeah, about 370,000 of that is to move forward with our 1-to-1 initiative. The rest of it is cyclical replacements of teacher computers, some server refreshes, stuff like that, AV upgrades.
So some of it's just general maintenance that really should be in our actual operating budget. I think it's a disservice
I think so.
to put it as a capital improvement. If you have to pull it out separate from the Chromebooks, that's fine. But if the Chromebooks are going to be an initiative, and we've got to roll those out for at least the next 4 years and then start replacing them later, those shouldn't be a pullout of 900, in my opinion, of $900,000. Those should be in our operating budget. We shouldn't have to beg for that every year or stop an initiative because the capital improvement project doesn't get approved. That's my opinion.
So I agree with you, and so that's why I asked the question to the board, because we will put it, I could put it in the budget, but I need the board to be ready to support a 6%, a 7%.
I think what needs to happen is, first, we need the information on where the uncommitted fund balance is. And then second, there needs to be some discussion with members of the Board of Finance about, because there's the trade-off, as Mr. Johnson just mentioned, with what happens to the minimum budget requirement. so that the Board of Finance is sometimes willing to consider making expenditures outside of the budget referendum in order to keep the MBR, the minimum budget requirement, from going up too rapidly, or too rapidly to suit them, so.
Yeah, but they also don't want to play with the risk of increasing their interest.
Yeah, that's why we need to sit down and talk to them about where they want to come out here. I mean, the other thing that I suspect is that a referendum that asks for more than 4% is going to be a heavy lift.
I agree.
Oh, yeah.
I think
definitely.
so, too.
Oh, yeah. So I'm meeting with Mr. Rivers next week, and I will be talking with him about, some feedback of where he thinks we are and what direction we should go.
I mean, there's other ways to finance capital, obviously, other than out of undesignated fund balance. There's different financing alternatives. I mean, purchasing is obviously the cheapest in the long run because you're not paying interest to anyone. But again, they're not capital in the sense that we consider capital more than X amount of years of useful life. When you look at one-to-one replacements for Chromebooks, I don't think many people would say that's really bondable. In theory,
Oh,
you
God,
know,
No.
I wouldn't say it is.
No.
I mean, it's something that you could, in theory, lease. You'd have a
Yeah,
leasing
that
program,
would be-
and you could finance it that way. Undesignated fund balance, if you have it, is the best alternative.
I think we look into leasing. I asked Brandon to look into leasing before, and I think the report that he gave me was that it was not in our best interest to lease them. Is that correct, Brandon?
Correct.
I think last year,
More expensive.
Yeah.
The way we're rolling out the one-to-one initiative over 4 years
Yes.
builds that
Yeah.
refresh cycle in without having to, it's staggering the payments every year, so you
Yeah.
can work out to a stable amount for each year that you would save.
But if you took out a lease, would you get some kind of a protection plan with the lease?
Not likely, it would cost more if we did.
yeah.
Okay, I didn't know if that was part of the
Yeah,
no.
package.
The same thing that makes Chromebooks a poor candidate for bonding makes it a candidate for high leasing costs. I mean, the folks that would lease something that's not really suitable for bonding would not do it unless there was an opportunity to make money doing so.
I just.
Go
I
ahead.
just read I read about Microsoft coming up with a new line of Chromebooks, and I think they're competing with Google, and prices are going to go down.
That's good
Just,
for
just came out, I just read it 2 days ago, so I think it would be worth checking on that, worthwhile.
Definitely, as we purchase stuff, we
Yeah.
look for the best pricing as we purchase it,
Yeah.
so hopefully if funds go down, we'll be able to purchase at a lower price, but I would love a price war between Microsoft and Google.
That can only benefit us.
That would be a good one, yeah.
Yeah, it'll be out about maybe in a month or something.
We'll keep tuned to that one. That'll be a good one.
I mean, in theory, you can go out and do, if you have a 3-year lease, the first year you could cover with short-term notes, because, and then only lease for the remaining 2 years, could make it cheaper, but.
But what I'm talking about is Microsoft having a program for schools. It's not like individual Chromebooks, but Microsoft is going, getting
Right,
ready.
they come out with a school version of Windows, but
Right, that's what I'm talking.
as of right now, the industry doesn't have much adoption of it. A lot of programs that we run would not run on that, so it probably would not make sense for us to use.
Not even being for schools, designed specifically for school systems.
You know, Google Classroom, Google that's tied all of the stuff to Google Docs and the other cloud services, has given them a leg up in this market at this point. And it's,
For what I read.
Microsoft can offer hardware cheaply, but not the
I don't
total
think we need
package.
to get into a conversation about Chromebooks here in the meeting. If you want to stick around afterwards and talk about it, that's fine. I think people have made their point that there might be other options, things that we should look at.
That's the idea.
Well,
Is there anything else? I know that a couple people have some time constraints, so is there anything else that people want to bring up before we conclude this meeting? Okay,
I motion we adjourn.
Second that.
motion's been made by Tracy, seconded by Hilda.
Thank you.
We're adjourning at
8:15.
8:15.
Get out of here.